Hello, my creeplings. I'm back again. I know. Don't threaten you with a good time. Anyway, I pulled an interesting one out of the library this week. We're going to go back to the vampire genre, but we're going to go for a mixture of a neo-western and vampire genre from 1987 called Near Dark. This was directed by Catherine Bigelow, who is one of James Cameron's former wives. I bring that up because of some of the casting choices in this, and we'll explain that in a minute. Written by Eric Red and Catherine Bigelow as well. Music was by Tangerine Dream, so they were I think, progressive rock band that was known for doing film scores. They're also responsible for the film score for Tom Cruise's Legend with the amazing Tim Curry as Darkness. Even though that's a fantasy film, we may go over that one of these days because that's one of my top 100 of all time films. So the score on this is really great. This was released in September of 1987 at a film festival. Released to the general public October 2nd, so it would have been a good Halloween movie to go see. We have our cast of characters are played by Adrian. I'm going to pronounce his last name wrong if I don't look at this and go slowly. So it's Adrian Pasdar as our main character, Caleb Colton. I think he was in Heroes. That was on, was it NBC or ABC in the late 90s? He's also most recently shown up across my screen in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. He played one of the main military men that showed up in some of the later seasons. I've seen him in other things. I actually quite like his work. Jenny Wright plays a character named May. She was bigger in the early 80s. Last thing I saw her in was Young Guns 2, where she played Jane Greathouse, the prostitute, the madam of the whorehouse, prostitute, love interest of Billy the Kid, whatever. But she was in a handful of cult classics from the early 80s. This, I think she was in Pink Floyd's The Wall. She showed up in an adaptation of a book called The Chocolate War. She was pretty active at this time. I think she's since gone semi-retired, or at least retired. We have Lance Henriksen. Plays one of our main antagonists, Jesse Hooker. Bill Paxton, everybody. He shows up in this one. I think this is our first Bill Paxton movie. So if you have followed the channel in the past, you kind of know I'm a big character actor girl. I love my character actors. Some girls have, pictures of Chris Hemsworth and Robert Downey Jr. on their walls. I have Vincent Price and Ted Raimi. And Bill Paxton falls into that character actor role for me. So whenever I see he shows up in a movie, I feel like I'm in for a real treat. He plays a character named Severin. Jeanette Goldstein plays one of our female leads, Diamondback. Joshua John Miller plays Homer. Marcy Leeds is Sarah Colton. Tim Thomerson, another one of those people if you love cult horror movies. He plays a character named Loy Cotton. I'm familiar with Tim Thomerson from Trancers and Doll Man from Full Moon Studios. That is another company / series of films that we will probably go over in the future. That company, Full Moon Pictures, is responsible for such classics as the Subspecies movies and Puppet Master. And Doll Man and Trancers, excuse me. I always say Scanners, but I mean Trancers. And Scanners is another good one. Another good series we might talk about in the future. But Tim Thomerson, he can handle the load here. And then we've got a bunch of featured artists or feature roles that I may or may not mention. So we open. It's nighttime in a small, I believe, Oklahoma town. I mean, we're talking dead-end dirt road town. Caleb is our main character. He's a young man, you know, out looking for a good time, and he meets a young woman coming out of an ice cream store named May. They go out, they have an interesting time. She starts panicking, though, the closer they get to dawn. She's got to get home, blah, blah. Well, he tries being smooth and he's like, I'll get you home for a kiss type idea. She instead bites him on the neck. And she runs off. Now, it's interesting because as he's trying to get home and the sun's rising, he automatically starts smoking and burning his flesh. So we pretty much have figured it out. May's a vampire and bit him. Next night, I believe, May arrives with her family of roaming vampires in an RV, and they kidnap him and take him away. Now, so we have May's one of the vampires, Jesse, so Lance Henriksen, Diamondback, and Homer and Severin. That's this little... And honestly, they look like some kind of ragtag gang that just lived in the desert. They get that dirty outlaw look perfectly with these guys. And I'm sorry, Bill Paxton as Severin just always puts this wicked little smile on my face because he plays up this character to the hilt. Most of the group want to kill Caleb, but May's like, no, you gave me an X amount of chance. Give him a few nights. He can be one of us. The thing about May is May was turned by Homer. Now, Homer's played by a little kid, so he's been an adult trapped in a child's body for a very long time, and May was supposed to be his companion, and May went and made herself one that was closer to her own age. So there's automatically kind of an antagonism between Homer and Caleb. Now, I don't know who turned Homer or why, but that was way too damn young. It's kind of like Claudia in Interview with the Vampire. You shouldn't make them that young, because once their brains get past their bodies, there's all kinds of issues that go on. So Jesse is their leader, and he reluctantly allows Caleb to join them for a week to see if he can learn to hunt and gain their trust. Caleb, of course, is still holding on to what shreds of humanity he has left, and he's unwilling to kill to feed, so he ends up feeding off of May. So he's kind of alienated automatically because of that. Now, they're at it for a couple nights, and they're like, you got one more chance. You make a kill tonight, or we kill you. In this time, they have ditched the RV. They have done the hobo riding the rails in a boxcar thing. So this group is everywhere, which is smart once you think about it, because vampires hunting in the modern world's got to be difficult just because of all the information we can trade nowadays. So constantly staying on the move and being drifters, I mean, as hard as it is, it definitely keeps you from getting caught. So the best scene, or one of the best scenes in the movie, is this second or third night with him, where they enter this bar out in the middle of nowhere, and the soundtrack that's playing in the background, you got a cover of Fever by the Cramps, you got a George Strait song, you've got Naughty Naughty by John Parso. A lot of interesting music juxtaposed against Severin being a dick and killing people, and Jesse killing someone, and it's one of the more interesting scenes. It's probably, when I talk about this movie to friends, it's probably one of the first scenes I start talking about. Now, this is not a super gory, effects heavy, but the effects that are done well. This film is more about, like, the atmosphere of all of it. So, but it's still very good. We did have one person escape. A very young, I believe the actor's name is James LaGrosse. I've seen him in a lot of independent films. I look at him and go, yeah, I know who you are. I can think of 3 films that you were in. I think it must have been one of his earlier roles. So they they kill everybody except for this kid that runs. They set the bar on fire and they flee. They all want to kill Caleb for fucking this up, except for May. They make it to a motel that has little bungalows. They manage to get down and hunker down for a little while, but then the escapee brings the cops and there's a standoff. Caleb risks his life to get the van that they stole to get them out of there, so it buys him some more time with them. Now, you find out about how old Jesse is when there's this little camaraderie moment when they find their second motel room and hunker down again. He fought for the South, so he's been an adult since at least the Civil War. There's also a throwaway line earlier that kind of suggests that he and Severin might have started the Great Chicago Fire of 1917. So at least two of them have been around for a while. There's also an earlier scene where Jesse's reminiscing about when he picked up Diamondback. She hasn't been a vampire as long as those two, simply because he picked her up on the side of the road faking car trouble. So I'm assuming probably not early Model A years. So she could have been turned as early as the 30s, but I'm guessing more of a 50s thing. Don't ask. That's where my brain went. So meantime, Caleb's father knows he's missing. He's been kind of trying to track him down with the help of his local police. He's been driving, state to state, following leads and everything. Well, at this second motel room, turns out Dad's there with the little sister because Homer finds the little sister, is instantly in love, and wants to turn her to become his new companion, long and short of it. Caleb's like, no. The Colton family fights their way out of it. They escape. And I should make a note, Caleb's father is a farm veterinarian. So he has all access to all these medical tools. And the truck that he was using was also his work truck. Caleb gets the idea as he's, basically roasting in the back of the truck, looking at all the medical equipment. He's like, have you ever transfused a human being? And it turns out a blood transfusion can cure vampirism. We find this out. Once they get him home, they do the blood transfusion. He's back to normal. A couple more nights. A little bit of time passes. And May shows up. And Homer. Well, May shows up and wants to know what's going on with Caleb. She's basically a decoy so they could kidnap Sarah. And we have May trying to persuade him to return. He's like, no, I can't. They figure out Sarah's been kidnapped. They have popped all the tires on the ranch. And so Caleb takes a horse into town. And he knows he found at least one of them when the horse spooks. Turns out it's Severin. That bastard goes out in a ball of flame thanks to a semi-truck. Big rig that Caleb uses to basically run him over and blow him up. So Jesse and Diamondback pursue him, but they're forced to escape in the car as dawn breaks. May and Homer and Sarah are in the back of this car as well. May breaks out of the car with Sarah, trying to help her out. Caleb manages to get both May and Sarah and attempts to save May by covering her with his jacket. Homer's out of the car, running in the dawn to try and get Sarah back. Apparently, when they start roasting, they blow up. So if you're a pyro person, the pyro effects in this are really good too. And we basically end the movie with Diamondback and Jesse and Homer flaming out and blowing up. Severin being blown up. and May being taken back to the farm and cured of her vampirism. I know that's a very short summary, especially since some of the other stuff I've gone over this past year, I've, got up to an hour on. This is a pretty good movie. I will go back and watch it a couple times. It's not one of those that doesn't have any kind of rewatchability for me, but I will say there are points where it lags a little bit. The story's kind of slow. Now, I mentioned James Cameron earlier, because if you just looked at that cast list, Lance Henriksen, Bill Paxton, Jeanette Goldstein, all had just come off of Aliens, directed by James Cameron. You'll also recognize Jeanette Goldstein from Terminator 2. So these are people that show up as a kind of a Cameron ensemble. So you'll see that they're in the bar scene. There's a biker in the bar. It's the same guy that came back for Terminator 2 as the biker in the bar. I need your clothes, your boots, and your motorcycle. Same guy. So I think Cameron was very influential, or helpful, not influential, helpful to his girlfriend and later wife getting this made. I don't want to say it's got his hands all over it, but you kind of look at this and you think, yeah, I could see where he had helped out. Very atmospheric, though, very well shot. Like I said, the only thing that kind of bothered me with it was there's some pacing issues to me where I find my brain wandering off. That could just be me and my flavor of neurospicy, whatever's going on up here. But like, this came out at a time what they called the American Vampire Resurgence. So like in this time frame, we'll say from about 85 to 87, we had Fright Night, which is also a really great flick. Once Bitten, also an interesting movie. I've seen it a handful of times. Both of those were 1985. Vamp with Grace Jones, which I really want to see, came out in 86. And then The Lost Boys and The Monster Squad both came out in 1987. So there was a pretty heavy influx, of vampire films at the time. I remember watching bits and pieces of this when it would show up on cable, and I always thought it was really visually well done. It was an interesting meld with the Western, though. That's not oftentimes, you don't often get horror Westerns. You are now, but the pre-millennium, it wasn't something you saw all that often, especially with vampires and Westerns. I think, according to my sources, there are only 2 that they cite, and both of them were from the 50s and 60s. So Curse of the Undead and Billy the Kid versus Dracula, which if you're, a Svengoolie or Elvira or whoever your local horror host was in the 70s and 80s, I'm sure you've seen those movies because they're ripe for being hosted by horror hosts. I think I have seen Billy the Kid versus Dracula. I just don't remember. I know it's bad of me. Now, I know in the 90s, going back to the whole horror genre melded with the Western genre. In the 90s, the role-playing company World of Darkness came out with the werewolf line, and one of their sublines is Werewolf the Wild Wild West, which I kind of want to look into. And then I know again, post-millennium, 2000s, they did a Blood Rain, I believe, movie. It was either straight to video or made for the Sci-Fi Channel. It was a Western where she met a vampiric Billy the Kid, played by, what's this guy's name? Zach Wise, I think? He shows up in a lot of stuff. He was the kid who was the bully in A Christmas Story. Whatever that guy, Zach, whatever his last name is, I usually know it. So, I mean, I would like to maybe see some more horror Westerns. Zombies could be a good one. Vampires are always good. Werewolf would be good as well. So yeah, this is probably one of my, I'm not gonna say favorite, but it's definitely one of my more visited vampire films. It's actually a pretty good movie. So if you haven't seen it and you like the actors that are in it, I highly suggest taking the time to watch it. It's really good. So I'm gonna, like I said, I'm gonna keep this one short. So I think I'm done yapping about this one tonight. I have got another movie queued up already. So hopefully I can get that one watched and come back and talk to you guys later about it. Until then, though, have a good night, my creeplings. And I'll see you next time. Bye.